Media Essential Workers, thank you for joining us today. We are actually having a tribute show today to a great photographer, a great journalist, a great friend to many who have worked at NBC5 Chicago, and that is Mr. Jimmy Stricklin. Jimmy Stricklin, known to his friends, Jim Stricklin, known to the world. We found out a couple of days ago that he joined his good friend, his buddy, Dick Kay, in an untimely passing. And we've just had so many people reach out to us and want to share stories and want to talk about celebrate the life of Jimmy. So we wanted to go ahead and give the opportunity to his friends to go ahead and do that. We actually have Jimmy McDonald, who's joining us. He's been on the show as well before, so we want to give him an opportunity. We actually also will be having Hetty Zussman, who was his longtime kind of companion in the field, who will be joining us too. Sarah, I'll just have you. And we are going to bring Jimmy Mack on right now. Jimmy, thank you for joining us. I know that this has been a hard couple of days. 2021 has been difficult in general with the passing of some very good friends, some very good people, and we want to talk right now about your good friend Jimmy.
Well, thanks a lot, Raza. I want to pass on my condolences to the Stricklin family, to Joyce and their son, and explain to them and everyone else, what a great thing to be able to say, hey, I worked with Jim Stricklin, or Strick as I called him. There's so many stories, you think about it. As a union brother, you would want him on your side. If people did get in trouble, okay. When he took the job as shop steward, I'm thinking to myself, and then I finally asked him, I said, so you must have a degree in psychology or maybe a degree in psychiatry, to be able to keep a handle on, all these different personalities, all these different people, and the different ideas. And my idea is better than your idea, and I don't get along with so and so and so and so. And to be able to keep all of that together, and then pass on any news information from NABET to keep everybody informed. He was really good at that. But
Jimmy, one of the things that Bill Jennings was telling me about and he'll be joining us as well. He's trying to get home to join us, but he was a young photographer at one time. And he was telling me he was coming up at Channel 5 and he was kind of a little nervous about working with reporters. And sometimes as you get nervous, you pace around a little bit. And Jim told him, he said, you know what, sit down, let me talk to you for a second. And he expressed to him something that was very true in that day, which is you're going to go out there in the field. You're going to work with reporters multiple times and you're going to work solo multiple times. The point of that is this: the reporters, you are not always going to need them, but they're always going to need you. The photographer has that power. So relax, you got this, essentially. And Billy told me that's one of the things that really was like, you know what? Yeah, I can do this. And when he was talking to me, just kind of expressing to me that mentorship that he had for people who were up and coming in the field.
Absolutely. He'd steer you straight. Hey, stay away from that. No. You're going to get in Dutch if you get involved with, okay, or hey, good idea. I'm glad I paid attention to what he said. And that, what he told Billy, will probably stick in Billy's head for the rest of his life. Like other advice. No, don't get involved. No. Hey, or upstairs is questioning about what did you get involved without, something that they were unhappy with. Or, you knew that something was coming up, some type of negotiations regarding a grievance or something like that. You could depend on him, pardon my French, to pull your ass out of the fire. And he did. He pulled, I don't know, how many guys were down in that shop? Someone was always getting into some type of something or other, and okay, thank God Jim was there to take care of it. I'm proud to say that I worked with them, whether it was 106 degrees out at Midway Airport or 10 below, doing a live shot at the planetarium, it's like, well, okay, You take the good with the bad. There was a lot of good stories, and of course, I mean, a lot of bad stories, not happy stories that we had to, tell the story and get it across to the people sitting at home. And
Jimmy Mack, I am going to make mention, because it looks like we have a lot of people who are kind of watching, that you can share your stories by commenting, and it'll actually come up so we can recount some of the stories we've heard. We've heard about one of the ones Billy said. Hetty had a couple too that she told me that are hysterical, and I would like for her to join and tell the story herself. But if I can't get her, I'm going to relay those. So you can comment, you can click the link, which will actually allow you to come up here and tell the story yourself. But one thing, we were talking about the young people that Jim Stricklin really mentored. One of the guys that he kind of saw coming up, Steve, if you're good and if I can come to you, I'm going to bring the son of Dick Kay, who was his partner. I just learned this right now, as one of the Gold Dust Twins. And that's something that I want to have him explain how that nickname came about. Let's pop up right now. Steve, can you hear me? Can you see us?
I can hear you guys. Thank you for having me.
No, absolutely. Thank you for contacting me. And, I know this was hard. You just found out about this today. This is someone, he considered you his nephew.
Yeah, Jimmy was real special in a lot of ways. He was just like my dad, but yet he countered my dad in a lot of ways. They were both in the field all the time. Jimmy was Dad's right-hand guy in terms of actually, going out in the stories and doing the tough stories and stuff. But they became so tight as friends. They became so tight as buddies. And the Gold Dust Twins came. They were out on a story, I believe, in southern Illinois somewhere. And they were standing out waiting somewhere outside of a general store, and there was this live cutout of the Gold Dust Twins soap box. Well, the Gold Dust Twins soap box was pretty, in its time, not racy, but it would be now, because it portrayed two African American people. But the heads were cut on it. So Jimmy looked at Dad, Dad looked at Jimmy, so let's go over there. They stuck their heads through the holes where the faces were, the cutouts were supposed to be, and took the picture, and it stuck, and they were the Gold Dust Twins. So many good memories about Jimmy. He called me nephew, which I thought was hilarious. He was such a good-humored, hardworking guy. He countered my dad all the time in the way that they bickered like two little old ladies. So if my dad said, no, you go get the shot, or point it over here, point it over there, Jimmy'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. That would look stupid. I'm going to do this. And it rolled through their whole career together, and it rolled through their lives together. A big component in Jimmy and Dad too were blowing off steam together, sailing. I was a guinea pig with those two. Literally, it was brutal with those two. It was like having two mothers on a boat that didn't know what they were doing, but they told you to do everything. And one time, they owned a boat together. It was late November. It was past late leavers permit. They were moored in Monroe Harbor, and it was probably -5. And it was the absolute last day that they could get the boat out of the river. So they hopped on. I agreed to come with, to lend a hand. All the bridges were stuck. Chicago city workers would not move too quick for boats. Daley didn't like boats at the time. And we made it all the way up. We spent 14 hours in 0-degree weather, and we got off the boat. We smelled terrible. We looked terrible. And my dad's like, we're going to dinner. And Jimmy's like, where the hell do you want to go to dinner? It's 6:30 on a Sunday night. We stink, and I'm not going anywhere like this. And he's like, no. So Dad flagged out a cab, dumped Jimmy and I in there, and said, take us to Rosebud.
Oh.
So we're scurvy dogs. We walk into Rosebud, and my dad, the owner of Rosebud, Alex Dana, saw us and pulled my dad over to the side. Everybody else is dressed in their Sunday best having a meal, and pulled us over to the side and hit us away. And he was like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And my dad's like, "We want to eat." And Jimmy's like, "I want to leave. This is stupid." And I'm like, I'm just standing there. Alex Dana took Jimmy, Dad, and I back into the back room and cooked off menu for us, and then sat down and talked to us. So many great stories about Jimmy. He and Dad went to New Zealand for the America's Cup in 2000, and they were trying to finagle a way to get really close to the boats. So Jimmy finagled some press passes for the camera boat, and then walked into the back of NBC and stole gear. So here's Stricklin borrowing.
There we go.
$200,000 piece of equipment, stuffed it in a duffel bag, walked out of NBC, and off they went. And the shots and the stories and everything they did were absolutely hilarious. I won't take up a lot of time, but they had such a special bond together. I loved Jimmy. Jimmy was literally like an uncle to me in so many ways growing up, in so many ways ethically, work-wise, because you didn't have a lot of people at that time that were really, really close. And I'm not mentioning, I'm professionally as well as racially. And they did everything together, and they didn't care. And as men, as true brothers, they loved each other. My condolences to Joyce. My condolences to Jim's son. It broke my heart to hear the news after Dad, and then now Jimmy. Kind of a huge pill to swallow. Both of them were huge guys. Jimmy was a huge guy, class act, and I'll always remember him in my heart. So it was just.
I know it's been a very hard year for yourself, your family. I know you guys just had a celebration of life and memorial not too long ago, and then to hear this news. We have a couple of people just joining us. So just to make the quick introduction, because we don't have a caption, we're joined by Steve Snodgrass, who, many people knew your dad, Dick Kay. That last name taken after the name of your mother, is that correct?
Yes.
He used that as a television stage name, and that's something that even
Correct.
I didn't come to know of till later in my career. But really appreciate you reaching out to me and wanting to be part of kind of talking about what it meant to know this man who was such a great friend to your family and to your father, of course.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. I really do. And I was so privileged to know Jimmy. So thank you.
Well, and thank you for joining us. We are going to actually bring up, and Billy, I will tell you this, and Steve, you're welcome to stay as long as you'd like to share more stories, which we would love. If you have to go, you can obviously pop off too, but anything you could share, we would love to have.
You want to hear
Billy,
the stories.
Well, I will tell you this. So, Billy, I started off by stealing your thunder and the story you were going to tell about the mentorship component and how he told you, they're always going to need you. But I'm sure you have so many stories over the years from Jim, not only as a coworker, but as a union steward leader. But anything you can share to kind of paint the picture of the man that Jim Stricklin was. I know a lot of the people who are watching already know him, but I know there's a lot of people who joined wanting to know about him. What can you tell us about him?
You know what? First of all, I want to say hi to Steve and my condolences. Your dad was he was not the best. He was one of the very best. I just loved him. I haven't seen you in years. Actually, I think you and I, my daughter and your dad went sailing one 4th of July out of Monroe Harbor. And Jimmy Mack, nice to see you, my friend. But Jim Stricklin was just. I just remember, I was a young man in minicam, and I was, you're in a big market. I was nervous. I was, literally my first job out of the Marine Corps, and I remember I was kind of pacing around the shop one time, and he looked at me. He said, "Well, what's wrong?" And I was working with a reporter that was not difficult, but I was intimidated by it. And he said, "Come here, Bill, sit down." And he said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "You will today, and on a lot of days, do television without a reporter. They will never, ever go out and do television without you. You are the point of this. You are the tip of the spear. Don't be intimidated. They can't do TV without you. Don't ever forget that. And the good ones appreciate you." And he was, and it kind of opened the window for me or settled me down or whatever. And I just remember, some of the classy guys, the Peter Nolans, the Carol Marines, the Paul Hogans. I mean, they always appreciated their crews, but a lot of people didn't. They just, they just used them, and Jim refused to let that happen. And he was just such a great guy as a younger man coming into the business, to have Jimmy in the shop. He was always there for any question that you had about equipment or how do you handle yourself, and union business. It was Jimmy Mack. We went through huge transitions in field operations.
Absolutely.
And Jimmy was there to pull the reins in and remind everybody, whoa, wait a second, guys. We're your main workforce. Let's not forget who does the day in and day out labor of this job. We're a television station. We're a television medium that that square box in the corner is not a magic box. It requires guys like me and Jimmy and Jimmy Mack and the guys to do the work every day. So he brought that all in perspective. That it really was a team effort, and that we were just as important, if not, more important than anybody in the operation, and to never forget that. And he was just, he always had a sense of humor about him.
Oh.
I remember specifically one time we had an assignment.
I got a story about that too, Billy. Right after
we had an assignment that came down and was berating him. He said he came marching into the minicam shop, and Jim Stricklin was looking there, and he had a sandwich with him. He said, "Jim, I've been trying to get a hold of you, and he said, I can't get a hold of you." He said, "Did you call me on the radio?" He said, "I did, and I couldn't raise you." He said, "Did you page me?" He said, "I did, and you didn't answer." He said, "Well, then apparently I'm unavailable." And then he just went on eating. And it was typical Stricklin. I mean, he just didn't, he put it all in perspective. He just said, listen, this is television, guys. It's not brain surgery. He just relaxed everybody. And he always did it with a sense of humor.
That laugh.
He was just one of the good guys to be around. And as a younger guy in television, he was one of the guys that I will always remember. Was a great mentor and a great guy that kept the television business in perspective. It was just a good thing to have him around. And he was just a scream. There are so many stories that we just can't tell on something like this because he was just so funny. And he and I just had a great relationship. We were friends until the last time I saw him was at Anna Wasser's wake, and we sat and chatted for a few minutes. And then, COVID hit literally right behind that. And then I heard about Jimmy's demise earlier in the week. So Chuck Quinzio and I talked, Paul Nagaro and I talked, and Dave Durham and I talked, Carol Marine and I talked, Don Mosley and I talked. I mean, it's just all the lives he touched. So I'm not gonna say I'm looking forward to it, but I can't wait to attend some type of memorial or service for him because it's going to be wonderful.
Steve, you must have, and Billy, thank you for sharing that. I mean, just to know the whole array of kind of experiences you have with him. You talked about how he had humor and some of the funny things you've experienced. Steve, you must have known Hetty Zussman growing up with him, his partner in what he did, being a field photographer. So she has expressed to me, and man, I was hoping she'd already be on because I wanted her to tell this story. She was telling me some of the humorous kind of occasions she had with him. And I didn't know this about her, but she really gets accents down. And when she tells the story, it's awesome. But one of the stories she expressed to me, and I don't want to mess this up. So, okay, so she's out there. She's working with Jimmy, right? They're going to cover a news story. She happens to mention to him in passing, working where we do at the Peacock, that hey, another field photographer out there. I think he's kind of cute, just they're talking. That's it. They go back about a week later, maybe a month later. Photographers coming up. Hey, Hetty, how are you? Just like extra friendly, this and that, and and then she goes back and she says, hey, Jimmy, it's weird. This keeps happening. Do you know why that is? He's like, oh yeah. I told him you like him. She's like, that's the wrong photographer.
One of the funniest videos that I remember Hetty and Jim in was in Bill Carter's retirement video that they made. Everybody was giving a goodbye to Bill Carter, who was the head of Minicam and film, and he was the boss. And they were both out in front. They were up on North Michigan Avenue, and one of the, it might have been Marshall Fields or one of the other stores, in the background. And Jim looks at Hetty, and Hetty looks at Jim. He says, well, Hetty, it looks like we're not going to be shopping here anymore now that Bill is leaving. It's like those days are going to be over with. And everybody is just roaring. It's like, I can't believe. And then there was another one where I worked evenings with Jim. And he was a one-man crew in a truck, and I was a one-man crew in a car. And we would meet up to do a 10 o'clock live shot. And so we're sitting before the live shot. I says, Monday morning, I said, Monday evening, I said, so how was your weekend? Hey, fantastic. I was able to go and see the Godfather of Soul, James Brown himself. I said, how did that happen? He says, well, our friend George Serranos, who was an audio engineer, worked at Fox, worked at Channel 5, idolizes James Brown. And he had these extra tickets. So he's asked Stricklin, he says, hey, yeah, you want to go out to the Holiday Star Theater? So Jim says, I was out in your neighborhood at the Holiday Star. It was this Saturday night. And we had like 8th row seats. And this was just absolutely fantastic. So, the show is over with. And of course, George Serranos, always thinking up here, says, hey, do you have your NBC ID? Well, yeah, I do. Well, come on, let's go. They go and they try to get backstage. And of course, the guy says, who are you guys with? And they pull out we're with NBC. Okay, come on in. By all means, come on in. And they were able to get backstage and party with James Brown and actually meet him. Strick was he talked about that. I said, well, what did they play? It was sort of like he couldn't even remember everything. It was just a fantastic show. So him bulldogging their way in backstage at the James Brown concert, and it was stuff like that just constantly. It just little stories here and there. And it was great to be able to work with him. He knew what he needed. He pulls up with the truck. He knew what he needed to do. I knew what I had to get things set up. And there was one situation, and I think I might have told you about it earlier, where we were covering a story, and it wasn't a pleasant story by any means. Some small child was murdered, and they didn't know who did it. And we're trying, to get answers to the story. And the family didn't know. The neighborhood didn't know. The police had a good idea who. And of course, okay, let's go. They're going to do a live shot. And this is back in the day where, you could go back to the scene and do a live shot. But I pull up in the car, and Jim says, hey, hold off. Don't take anything out of the car yet. People, the family, neighbors, everybody's quite upset here. We don't want to, get people mad, or to have any problems here. And then Channel 7, of course, came along, and 9, and then Channel 2 came, and everybody agreed, hey, we're going to hold off from taking equipment out and start turning on lights and turn it into a circus, because, people are upset with the police. They're upset with the media. And but the guy from Channel 2, he wouldn't listen to us. And he was there by himself. And first up goes the mast. Up comes the lights, the camera, the tripod, and starts to light the place up. And Strick told him, said, no, you might not want to do that. That might not be the wise thing to do here with the climate, with the people being upset. And sure enough, here comes a brick and here came a bottle. And the guy from Channel 2 couldn't get the mast down fast enough and the equipment back in the truck. And in the meantime, off we go. And I said, well, the guy wasn't from Chicago and he really didn't understand. He wasn't really streetwise when it came to, Chicago things. Hey, check out the landscape before you bring out all the equipment. And Jim had that knowledge and he had that extra sense in his head. No, let's hold off a little while before. It's not going to take us that long to put the mast up and turn it on and get on the air. Just let's play it cool here. But it was stories like that, where, oh, good. I came home in one piece and didn't have any problems with that. And I appreciated that. And I'm thanking him here today for steering us straight on stories like that,
He was. I've got a funny one for you. There was and Jimmy Mack will remember this. There was an unwritten rule when they sent you to lunch. They were not supposed to contact you for an hour. You had the hour lunch. Well, there was an unwritten rule, and they had an agreement with the local that if for some reason they had to call you and break you out of that lunch, the company would pick up the tab for the lunch. They'd pay for it, because then you're grabbing your food and you're eating it in the truck or in the car on your way out. So Jim got pulled out of lunch one time, and he turned in a receipt from Chez Paul, which was a very fancy French restaurant on Dearborn Street, and had an awning. It was a real fancy place, and it was like a $45 lunch or something ridiculous like that. Yeah. And they called him up. They said, "Really? They said, "Well, yeah, you broke me for lunch, so you're paying for my lunch." He said, "Are you going to tell me that you ate at Chez Paul for lunch?" And he just looked at me and said, "I have a very discerning palate." and they had to pay him. That was the deal. And I just stuff like that. And you could go. I mean, you could talk for days about stuff like that he would do. He was just a ball.
As Val Press would say, I got Stricklinized.
Yeah, that's right. And he was just he was just one of the good guys. He was just one of the good guys, no matter what. He was if you got stuck somewhere, if you got stuck on an election night, or you got stuck at a hostage barricade situation, or you were down in the Federal Building, or you were at 26 in California, you're always glad that Stricklin was there, because he was just an enjoyable guy to be around. He was fun.
He was always thinking about his son.
Yeah,
and this has to be 20 years ago, maybe. He came up to me, he says, "Hey, Mac, you've got some speakers, I think, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I got a lot of speakers. Why? What do you need?" Oh, my son's got I think it was a New Year's Eve party at a place called Serengeti. And I guess they volunteered their services to be a DJ. I says, "Well, just tell them to come on over with the big truck, because these things are big. It's going to take two guys to move these things." And out they come. And I don't think they expected them to be. It's something like what they're using down at Lollapalooza today, and hopefully their party went off very well. The speakers came back and they were in perfect shape, but it was stuff like that. He was always, "Oh, yeah, hey, how can we? Oh, yeah, hey, I know someone that's got speakers. Yeah, let me give them a call and we'll find out." Hey, it worked out. It pays to know people.
Yeah, and like I said, it was just he was one of the good guys. He was one of the good guys. I was fortunate to have him in my career, and it was just fond of him. And
he gave
borrowed
me the
camera.
I think he was the first to start calling me Mac Daddy down in the basement, down the shop. He said, "Hey, Mac Daddy," it's everything. "Hey, Mac," and at the end, when I'm late, just remember, I'm your Mac Daddy now.
Jimmy, I do want to come back to that and hear the story behind that. That sounds like it's going to be an amusing one.
Yeah.
Steve, you were saying something. You had a memory that you wanted to share.
he would do stuff like that for people with the speakers and everything. He actually borrowed again a mini cam and shot my whole wedding.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me, Steve.
He shot my whole wedding.
Yeah.
I was so nervous I didn't even know he was there, but later on he showed me the playback on it. It was absolutely hilarious. Because he got the cutaways and then he got the shots of me sweating, but that's a different story.
You know what? I got to tell you, I talked to Julio Martinez today, and we were talking about Jim, and he said they sent me out to when he first got there. They sent me out to train with Jim because Jim was he was a senior staff member, and he knew what he was doing, and they sent the new guys out with Jim because he would show them what to do. I mean, and he was invaluable. It was just an invaluable. An invaluable guy to have in the shop and as a coworker. You were lucky to have him as a coworker. Period.
You wanted him on your side. That's one thing for sure. You wanted him on your side.
We are going to put up a picture real quick, Billy. We're going to punch up a picture here that kind of shows. Now, I don't know, Steve, you could tell me, is this the boat that they jointly own? But tell us about the pleasure and the joy for people of my generation who may never, hearing these stories, let's pop that picture off. But hearing these stories, I realized I got into this business at the wrong time. Sounds like you guys knew how to have a lot of fun. It sounds like you guys knew how to really bring some joy into the work you did. Talk about what sailing meant for both of them.
Well, to your first point, the sailing, your first point is, and you guys can agree with me, I was very fortunate because Dad would take me to work with him on Sundays. And that was back in the days where you did anything, you'd stick your neck out, whether you were the sound guy, the camera guy, or the reporter. You guys would work together in some really precarious, situations just to get the story. That doesn't exist anymore. And you guys can testify that to it with probably all the crazy things you guys did as well. But the sailing piece was their out. It was their way to disappear. It was their way to, kind of bond for the same thing. It was really funny though. Jimmy was, he liked certain things. He was very fussy about food. He was very fussy about other things. But the funny thing was, Jim joined the Chicago Yacht Club because part of the whole experience with Jimmy was, well, I can go sailing and then I can go to the yacht club and sit around and have a great meal and then go home. My dad wouldn't want to do it. My dad would sleep on the boat all the time. But the beauty of it, that is not the boat they owned. That is my dad's old boat called Del Rose from his whole hometown. And those two guys would go out for hours on end together. And they would just disappear. And they'd just be happy. And it brought them both such joy. And again, they were like two little old ladies on a boat because they bicker with each other all the time. Oh, trim the sail. You gotta take the out hole. You gotta do this. And Jimmy would go, the hell I have to do this. I don't have to do this. Don't tell me what to do. Well, yeah, come on. We're gonna trim it out. We're gonna do this. We're gonna experiment a little bit. My dad loves sailing. And Jimmy did too. Jimmy knew a little bit more about my dad, but it was my dad's boat. And, it was always fun for Jim to, get on there and just bust his chops as much as he could about his boat. This boat isn't rigged right. You should clean it up. You need to paint it. You gotta get this special part on it. You got to do this. You got to do that. And then they were dreamers about it. They'd think about, okay, let's sail down to the Southern Cross. let's go through the St. Lawrence Seaway and go sail the whole East Coast. So they were like two little kids, that had these big dreams, like it was their first bicycle, and they'd go out in the boat and, they would try to find the edge of the world with it. And it was just a goofy, sometimes perilous, way to blow off some steam. But man, they had fun. They really had a hell of a lot of fun. And like I said before, it was these two guys bickering like two little old ladies, was absolutely hilarious. And even with the union stuff, because Dad was real heavy in the union like Jimmy was, and they changed they'd share a lot of perspective and a lot of views on, oh God, management. Oh, especially management. I don't think either one of them loved management. They kind of loathed them. It was a love-hate relationship. But, and you guys know this because you had to deal with it too. But they would swap those stories, and they would bounce ideas off each other, and they'd bounce strategies off each other. And that was part of the beauty of them too. That was another commonality that they had outside of working together, outside of sailing. The union was another thing that they both believed in really, really strong. And they fought for a lot of people together, and they individually and together. So
and you know what?
That was a cool dynamic too, huh?
Hello?
Hi, Hetty. We got you on. We actually have, you were talking about her, about his experience with the union. We actually have Hetty, who's very active still with the union, who was, partners with Jim. And Hetty, we actually want you to share some of the stories, if you would. We're going to punch up a picture of Hetty. Everyone knows her, but here she is with Jim Stricklin. Hetty, I almost brushed upon one of the stories, but you tell it best. I want to hear it with accents and all. Tell us your story and your remembrance of working with Jim.
You must be talking about Jim's encounter with Bill Carter, who happened to have been the supervisor.
That's the one. That's the one. Do it with accent and all. Give us the full experience of how it went down. Paint us a picture.
Well, Jim was called upstairs to Bill Carter. We worked in Minicam, and the Minicam shop was in the basement of the merchandise mart. And Bill Carter was on the 19th floor. And Jim got called upstairs to Bill Carter's office one afternoon. And Bill Carter was a good old boy from the South. And so he always had this really, really slow, well, Jim, I have to talk to you about something. I've been told that when you and Miss Hetty would be driving in the automobile, that she would be in the front seat and you would be sitting in the back seat reading a newspaper with a cigar in your mouth. And Jim, that isn't right for a little old white lady to be sitting in the front of the car driving you around. So I think Jim's response was something to that he didn't understand what was wrong with that. After all, Miss Hetty was very, very short, and he was very tall, and he had very long legs, and he couldn't sit in the front seat with her because she would move that chair way up close to the steering wheel, and he had no room for his legs. So what could Bill Carter say to him?
Well, you know what I call that is creative union negotiating. Like, he found a way to look at that and be like, well, I see a perspective very differently than you. So it sounds like, the stories you must be able to tell, having worked with him for so many years. And Hetty, I know you. There's comedy that surrounds some of when Hetty's out there. There's a funny story. Tell us again about the story about when somebody caught your eye. Somebody caught a young Hetty's eye once. Is that correct?
Well, Jim would always try to fix me up with everybody that we saw on the street, or if we were sitting in a minicam truck, and he'd say something to me like, "Oh, look at that guy. Do you like him? He's really nice." So we were we were at Sox Park for a game, to shoot the game or something, and he said something to me, and I said, yeah, I think that so-and-so from that other, a different TV station is really cute. And I didn't know the guy's name, but I described him to him. And so one day, so I didn't think anything of it. But one day, when Jim and I were there, he wasn't working that day or something, and I was the crew chief. I had to go out to 26th in California to shoot some suspect or something going through. And there was this guy from the station that I had mentioned that I thought that there was a cute guy there, and he kept trying to hit on me. I mean, minicam crews did not hit on each other, okay? But this guy kept coming up to me and trying to talk to me and everything like that. And so I didn't know what the hell was going on. So the next day when when Jim and I were back together again, I said, some guy, he said to me, so, I told that guy that you liked him and that you wanted to go out with him. I said, what guy? He said, so-and-so from such and such station. And I said, what does she look like? So he described it to me, and I said, that was not the guy. You told the wrong guy that I liked him. And so now this guy is following me around trying to get a date with me. So anyway, there was the biggest laugh going on because he told him the wrong person that I liked him.
Hetty, you got Stricklin.
It was pretty funny.
Wait, Hetty. So Hetty can't hear you. So I just want to say it again, Jimmy, so I can pass it along to Hetty.
Hetty, you got Stricklinized.
You got Stricklinized, says Jimmy Mack. Hetty, you got Stricklinized.
Yes, I did. I absolutely did. Yes. And she just liked doing that to me. And I have another story to tell you quickly. One day, we were out shooting a story with Dick Kay. And Dick Kay, after we finished shooting all the elements with him, Dick Kay had to do a stand-up. And so since we were at the merchandise bar, he decided to go out on right outside the second floor door that leads to the L trains anyway, because he thought that would be a great place to do the stand-up. Anyway, Jim sets up the tripod and everything, and I'm standing there, and I'm always begging Jim to let me, I want to practice shooting. Can I shoot the stand-up? Can I shoot the stand-up? So Dick Kay kept screwing up. And so we got to about the 20th time that he screwed it up, and we had to do it again. Stricklin said, okay, I've had it. You can shoot this, Hetty. I'm going down to the car, and when you're finished, just come on back down, because I'm not staying here and listening to this anymore. And he just walked away and left me with Dick Kay standing there.
Well, yeah, you know what, and we actually do have Steve Snodgrass, Dick's son, on, and Steve, you did mention how when those two were together, it was almost like they were in their own world with some of this stuff. But it sounds like with any partnership, there's always that frustration. There's always exploring and learning about each other. But at the end of the day, when you can go out there and sail into the sunset, just the two of them, whether or not they knew how to actually work that boat, that says a lot about a friendship. I can't even get my wife when we get into a tiff to forgive me and go on a boat or a car or grocery shopping or anything else.
Well, they were each other's work wives. That's for sure. Hetty, hi, it's Steve. Haven't seen her in a long time.
Yeah, no. So when I told her we were doing this, Hetty, and thank you, Hetty, for joining us. She had to cut off here, but she's working a 3 a.m. shift. So to even be able to come and join us and to pay tribute, because it was very important for her to do that. She mentioned that she did want to be on. And I really appreciate how all of you guys have also made the time to come and really talk. Steve, it's interesting. We just actually talked today. I know you just learned about it today, and we were just catching up. Obviously, I was, your father meant a lot to me. He was a mentor not only to myself, but a lot of people, a good union man, did a lot for our organization in general. And for me to be able to connect with you and hear some of these stories, and for our younger audience, like the people who are coming up in this, to learn about what has been paid for them by people like Jimmy and your dad, it really was valuable for us to have you, and Billy, for you to come, for you to have been a young buck who had experienced all of this, and to have gotten that knowledge that you pass on now to our generation. I mean, it just shows how this lineage works, how this transfer of knowledge works.
I wish both of these guys wrote a book. I
Yeah.
really do, because what Jimmy Mack, all you guys, I mean, what you guys did, for the times and the things that you saw historically in Chicago is absolutely amazing. You can't get that anymore. You can't go out and shoot like that anymore. I mean, you guys know they wanted one-man bands for crews. And Jimmy fought against that, and Dad fought against that. And the other thing about Jimmy, if I may compare him to Dad, and there's no comparison. Jimmy was just an incredibly special man. The thing is, too, he like Dad, he liked to mentor people. He liked to mentor young people to get in the business, and he gave them the lowdown right away. He'd warn them. You guys told your stories, but he'd also, stick up for them too, and that was the beauty of it. Because he was a great teacher. And the fun thing about Jimmy was he was very well educated and very well versed in multiple languages. So if sometimes, instead of just telling my dad to screw off, like Eddie said, or just walk away, he would start talking to him in French. He was fluent, and it would aggravate the hell out of my dad. Just talk to me. Just tell me what you're saying. He's like, I'm not telling you. I just told you. If you want to go look it up, then go look it up. I'm not going to say it again to you. And they were that way, and it was hilarious. Mentored a lot of people and told them the way it was too, and that was the wonderful thing about him. And I'm sure you guys have a lot, more memories than I do. I'm lucky because I was, brought up with it, but you guys lived it. So
there was a good one, and it was at his retirement, the day that he retired. They had coffee and cake up on the 5th floor in the conference room. When it was his turn, there was a group of guys that retired, and when it was his turn to come to the podium, he puts his hands up. He says, as the French said many years ago, the war is over. And he left it at that, and everybody applauded. Yeah, the war is over. He's not participating in the war anymore.
I just want to go around one last time and just have, if everyone could share a memory or something that was meaningful. We obviously express our condolences to the entire family, to Joyce, to Jimmy's son. This was a loss for all of us. And I got numerous calls yesterday. Hey, are you guys planning on doing a tribute? How are you going to address this? And I told my wife Sarah, I'm like, hey, listen, we got to get something, we got to arrange it, and it came together with people wanting to talk. Hetty sharing her story, and we obviously want to. We're going to give this to Joyce. I had talked to her yesterday. I wanted to give her a day to herself today, but let her know just the thoughts, because she was asking, when I recounted some of these stories, you could tell it made her day. She was laughing, and she was like, "Tell me more stories. Tell me what people are saying." So I'm gonna have like a whole bunch more stories to convey, and what Jimmy meant to all of us. I'm gonna start, Jimmy, with you, and then to you, Steve, and then Billy. I'll close out with you, and then we have a video that we put together that we just want to show with a picture montage. But why don't we start with you, Jimmy Mack?
Well, I'll repeat it again. I'm glad that I was able to work with him. I'm glad that, he had my best interests, in mind when he went upstairs to talk to the grown-ups up there, and working with them, whether it was, like I say, 106 degrees out or 10 below, hey, we knew that we could knock this out. And I think he had the same attitude, well, we're going to get this, but okay, here's ABC or CBS or Fox. We're going to get it better than them, and, I'll just leave it at that. I'm just proud to say that I worked with him,
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll go to Steve next. I know you've shared a lot of memories. Your father, Dick Kay, and Jimmy worked quite a bit together. They had a lot of fun together. You described how they would they would sail out there and just kind of disappear for a while. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of to close out and share a memory and just talk about your feelings. I know that's the hard thing. You just learned about it today.
Thanks. The analogy in the story that I want to tell is, because I believe it, because all you guys lived it, is my dad and Jimmy went out to San Francisco together to go see another America's Cup. And they had to get some stuff in order for traveling. And they were on a bench in San Francisco, sitting there looking over the bay and, loving life and everything. And they're trying to read. And my dad's like, I forgot my glasses. And he looked over at Jimmy. He's like, you got your glasses? And Jimmy's going like this. I don't have my glasses. And they're like, what the hell are they supposed to do? So these two guys shuffled over to a store and bought dime store glasses, so they could see. But even with their glasses on, the analogy I want to use is the amazing thing that Jimmy brought to people, the amazing thing that he saw. Whether he had glasses or not, it didn't matter. I mean, Jimmy lived it and saw it all. So I'm very, very proud to, say that he was a part of my life, part of a lot of other people's lives. And it was just an awesome privilege to it's just sad, but it was an awesome privilege to be, having him as a part of my life. So, I'm going to miss him.
Thank you so much for sharing that story and for coming on with us and expressing what that relationship was like, something that was very personal and close to your father, and him to share that with the rest of us. Billy, I want to also give you an opportunity as well.
I'm just going to recap what everyone else has said. I was just fortunate. I consider myself fortunate. As I look back, you just, there are certain people, Dave Durham, Susan Lasala, Paul Nagaro, Randy Birch, the people that have, that helped me, through my career. Jimmy Mack, I took over from Jimmy Mack as his network sound man, and just some of the people that have mentored me during my career that I look back and I just got to thank the good Lord for the people that he put in my life. And Jim Stricklin is one of them. He's just one of those guys that you're like, thanks. He made my career, he made my life just better because of, he was like an older brother to me. I could always ask him. You could ask him almost anything. He was absolutely hysterical to be around. He was a great guy to, he told a great joke. He had an infectious laugh. He was just one of the good guys to be around. But if you had a serious question, if you had a question about a union question or, a work question, he was the guy. He was your go-to guy. And I mean, how many times do we, Jimmy Mack, we'd be sitting in the shop and say, people would say, "Well, what do you think about that?" Well, I don't know. We gotta ask Stricklin.
Right.
You
Right.
gotta wait till
Absolutely.
Jim gets back, and we'll talk to Jim. And he'd walk in, and we'd have 4 guys that'd be sitting there, like, "Okay, whoa, what's going on?" And we tell him the story, and then he'd say, "Okay." And like Jimmy Mack said, and not that I got called up very often, but if there was a reason that you got called up to the 19th floor, you went with Jim, and Jim would say, he would tell you, no, you don't go up there until I go with you,
Right.
because he was there to make sure that you were dealt with fairly, that your side was listened to and heard, and that there were 2 sides to every story. So you were just grateful to have him around, and he was just one of the good guys. Like I said, I was fortunate to have him in my career with a list of people that I've had along the way, but he was one of them, and he was a big one.
I'm really grateful to everyone who joined us. Like I said, as soon as we learned about the passing, multiple people contacted me and said, "Hey, are we going to be able to do something to kind of show the family the respect we have, and to tell the story of what it meant to know Jim Stricklin?" I want to thank everyone who came on. I want to thank Jimmy Mack, of course, Bill Jennings, Steven Snodgrass. I want to thank Hetty, who's working a 3 a.m. shift, who said, "What time is this on? I'm going to be in my pajamas, so I'm not going to come on video, but I'm going to call in and share my experiences." She was a longtime partner of Jimmy. And man, the story she told, we only shared, let's be honest here, we only shared a small amount, wide array of stories that she told us, because there were so many stories to tell. And as we learn about arrangements, obviously we're going to pass that along, and we wish to express our sympathies, our condolences, our well wishes, and prayers to the family as they navigate this hard time. We're all here because we remember fondly Jimmy Stricklin. So we're going to close out with that. We have a video photo montage that we put together, but thank you to everyone for joining us. Bill, does it look like Billy wants to?
No, I just wanted to say thank you and Sarah for putting this together. I mean, this is just but it was important. So thank you. I'm honored that I was asked to be on. Thank you. And Jimmy Mack and Steve, it's good seeing you guys.
Yes.
Absolutely. Good to see all of you. And thank you all for joining us today. We're going to close out with this montage, and we'll talk to you guys soon.